Let's continue where we left off in Chapter 3, shall we? The final 2 years of his college education had been paid for with a $40,000 bequest left by a friend of the family's. More than $24,000 remained at the time of Chris's graduation, money his parents thought he intended to use for law school. "We misread him," his father admits. When Walt, Billy, and Corinne didn't know when they flew down to Atlanta to attend Chris's commencement, what nobody knew was that he would shortly donate all the money in his college fund to OXFAM America, a charity dedicated to fighting hunger. The graduation ceremony was on May 12th, a Saturday. The family sat through a long-winded commencement address delivered by Secretary of Labor Elizabeth Dole, and then Billy snapped pictures of a grinning Chris traversing the stage to receive his diploma. The next day was Mother's Day. Chris gave Billy candy, flowers, a sentimental card. She was surprised and extremely touched. It was the first present she had received from her son in more than 2 years, since he had announced to his parents that, on principle, he would no longer give or accept gifts. Indeed, Chris had only recently upbraided Walt and Billy for expressing their desire to buy him a new car as a graduation present, and offering to pay for law school if there wasn't enough money left in his college fund to cover it. He already had a perfectly good car, he insisted, a beloved 1982 Datsun B210, slightly dented but mechanically sound, with 128,000 miles on the odometer. "I can't believe they'd try and buy me a car," he later complained in a letter to Corinne. "Or that they'd think that I'd actually let them pay for my law school if I was going to go. I've told them 1,000,000 times that I have the best car in the world, a car that has spanned the continent from Miami to Alaska, a car that has in all those thousands of miles not given me a single problem, a car that I will never trade in, a car that I am very strongly attached to, yet they ignore what I say and think I'd actually accept a new car from them? I'm going to have to be real careful not to accept any gifts from them in the future, because they think they will have bought my respect." Chris had purchased the second-hand yellow Datsun when he was a senior in high school. In the years since, he'd been in the habit of taking it on extended solo trips when classes weren't in session. And during the graduation weekend, he casually mentioned to his parents that he intended to spend the upcoming summer on the road as well. His exact words were, "I think I'm going to disappear for a while." Neither parent made anything of this announcement at the time, although Walt did gently admonish his son, saying, "Hey, make sure you come see us before you go." Chris smiled and sort of nodded, a response that Walt and Billy took as an affirmation that he would visit them in Annandale before the summer was out, and then they would say their goodbyes. Toward the end of June, Chris, still in Atlanta, mailed his parents a copy of his final grade report, A in Apartheid in South African Society and History of Anthropological Thought, A- in Contemporary African Politics and the Food Crisis in Africa. A brief note was attached. "Here's a copy of my transcript. Grade-wise, things went pretty well, and I ended up with a high cumulative average. Thank you for the pictures, the shaving gear, and the postcard from Paris. It seems that you really enjoyed your trip there. It must have been a lot of fun. I gave Lloyd," Chris's closest friend from Emory, "his picture, and he was very grateful. He did not have a shot of getting his diploma handed to him. Not much else is happening, but it's starting to get real hot and humid down here. Say hi to everyone for me." It was the last anyone in Chris's family would ever hear from him. During that final year in Atlanta, Chris had lived off campus in a monkish room furnished with little more than a thin mattress on the floor, milk crates, and a table. He kept it as orderly and spotless as a military barracks, and he didn't have a phone, so Walt and Billy had no way of calling him. By the beginning of August 1990, Chris's parents had heard nothing from their son since they'd received his grades in the mail, so they decided to drive down to Atlanta for a visit. When they arrived at his apartment, it was empty and a "For Rent" sign was taped to the window. The manager said that Chris had moved out at the end of June. Walt and Billy returned home to find that all the letters they'd sent their son that summer had been returned in a bundle. "Chris had instructed us to hold the post office until August 1st, apparently so we wouldn't know anything was up," says Walt. "It made us very, very worried." By then, Chris was long gone. 5 weeks earlier, he'd loaded all his belongings into his little car and headed west without itinerary. The trip was to be an odyssey in the fullest sense of the word, an epic journey that would change everything. He had spent the previous 4 years, as he saw it, preparing to fulfill an absurd and onerous duty, to graduate from college. At long last he was unencumbered, emancipated from the stifling world of his parents and peers, a world of abstraction and security in material excess, a world in which he felt grievously cut off from the raw throb of existence. Driving west out of Atlanta, he intended to invent an utterly new life for himself, one in which he would be free to wallow in unfiltered experience. To symbolize the completed severance from his previous life, he even adopted a new name. No longer would he answer to Chris McCandless. He was now Alexander Supertramp, master of his own destiny. Well, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, please like and favor this video and subscribe to my channel. Stay tuned for tomorrow's episode in which we will read Chapter 4. Thank you.